When I first met his family, I was terrified of not fitting in. They were loud, warm, the kind of people who hugged you before asking your name. And his mom Anna was especially kind. She pulled me aside that first night and said, "You don't have to impress anyone here. You're already part of us." I remember tearing up in the bathroom after she said that, because I'd never had that before. My own family was complicated, cold mostly, distant at best. So when Anna opened her arms to me, I let myself fall into them. Birthdays, dinners, Sunday lunch. I was invited to everything. She gave me a spare key, left little notes for me around the house, even called me Philha daughter, and I believed it. Every word, every smile, even when there were tiny signs that something felt off. Like how she always insisted on helping when I cooked but then changed everything I did. Or how she would compliment me, then quietly suggest I dress a little more like family. But I ignored those things, because I wanted it to be real. I needed it to be real. I never had a mother figure who treated me that way, and it felt too good to question. Mathos, my boyfriend, always said she loved me, that she was just old-fashioned and sometimes clumsy with words. So I let it go, until one Sunday afternoon, it all changed. We were at Anna's house after lunch. Mathos had gone out to run an errand. She was taking a nap on the couch. I stayed behind to clean up the kitchen, like I always did. I was putting away some glasses when her laptop, which was open on the counter, pinged with a message. I wasn't trying to snoop, but I glanced. It was a WhatsApp notification. Group chat. Famlia Lima Sama Nora. That emoji hit me like a punch. I froze. My heart started racing. Hands suddenly too cold. Stomach twisted. I looked at her still asleep. Then back at the screen. The laptop wasn't locked. Messages kept popping up. I told myself, just one message, just to understand. But the second I clicked, I knew I was about to see something I could never unsee. The first thing I read? Algum precisa dizer pra ela que não faz parte de verdade. Then, ela se esforça tanto, chega a dar pena. And then one from Anna herself. Ela boazinha mas temaquil all her de quem sempre cur esseracida. Afsil de manipular. I remember blinking. Once, twice, just trying to understand. Was this a joke? Some sick sarcasm I didn't get? Then I scrolled up. Weeks, months. Back and forth messages. About me. Picking apart my clothes. Mocking the gifts I brought. One message even said, Ela limpando a cozinha igual empregada, a condo sando. My face burned. I wanted to close the laptop, walk away, but I kept reading, because I needed to know the truth. And the truth was, they never accepted me. They just liked that I tried, that I gave too much, expected too little, and never questioned the quiet looks they exchanged when I spoke. I closed the laptop quietly, washed my hands, wiped the counter spotless. Then I sat down, right next to Anna, watched her sleep, and I whispered, under my breath, "I'm not your daughter, not anymore." That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed next to Mathos, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many times he'd read those messages, how many times he laughed, or stayed quiet, or defended me if he ever did. I didn't ask, not yet, because I wasn't ready to hear the answer. All I kept thinking was, did I imagine all the kindness? Was I that desperate to be accepted? The next morning, I acted normal, made coffee, kissed him goodbye, smiled when his mom sent a meme in the group chat we were allowed in. But something in me had shifted, and once it cracks, it doesn't go back. I started noticing everything. Every time Anna touched my arm just a little too sweetly, then glanced sideways like she was checking who was watching. Every time his sister made harmless jokes about how I always tried too hard. I started replaying moments I'd brushed off, like when they gave me the wrong address to a family dinner by accident, or when I brought a gift for Anna's birthday and she said, "Oh, you didn't have to, really." I thought she meant it back then. Now I hear, this is beneath me. I tried to talk to Mathos one night. I asked gently if he ever felt like I was being kept at a distance. He just looked at me and said, "Babe, you're overthinking again. My mom adores you." I wanted to scream, not because he lied, but because he didn't even notice that it was a lie. Or worse, maybe he did, and just didn't care. That's when I realized something brutal. They didn't hide that group because they were afraid of hurting me. They hid it because they knew they were hurting me, and they wanted to keep doing it without consequence. That broke something in me, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I started watching them the way they watched me, smiling too wide, nodding when expected, pretending not to notice the looks exchanged across the table. I let them think I was still the same girl who wanted to be loved by that family, but I was already gone. I wasn't planning a confrontation. I was planning a clean exit, one they wouldn't see coming, because now, I wasn't just heartbroken. I was awake. There's a moment when something inside you flips, when pain turns into clarity, when you stop hoping people will change and start changing what you allow. That moment came to me in the middle of a family barbecue. Everyone laughing, drinks pouring, the usual chaos. And me, standing in the kitchen, watching Anna serve cake like she hadn't just mocked me in a group chat days earlier. She caught my eye and smiled. That fake, sugary smile. The one I used to mistake for warmth. I smiled back. And that's when I knew I was done performing. From that day on, I started pulling back. Little things at first. I stopped answering her texts right away. Stopped offering to bring dessert. Stopped volunteering to clean up. No big scene. No cold shoulder. Just space. And every time she asked if I was okay, I said, Just tired. Work's been crazy. She nodded, satisfied with the excuse. People like her don't look too close unless they think you're looking. Mathers didn't notice much either. I used to tell him everything. Now, I kept things light. Safe topics. No depth. No vulnerability. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since we moved in together. Wrote down everything I wanted to say but couldn't. And one night, I wrote a line that stopped me cold. This isn't my family. This is my performance. That's when I started planning. I pulled money from our shared account, not all at once. Slowly, I updated my resume. Started taking longer walks alone, not to clear my head, but to hear myself again. I even reconnected with a former coworker who once offered me a job in another city. It wasn't about revenge. It was about freedom. I wasn't going to scream at Anna in front of everyone. I wasn't going to demand she respect me, because she knew what she was doing. She just never thought I'd leave. Especially not without begging first. That's what made this worth it. Letting her believe she still had control while I built my exit quietly, inch by inch. And the more distance I created, the more I saw it. I was never going to be enough for people who needed someone to look down on, so I stopped trying, and with every silent step away, I felt lighter. Because sometimes, walking away doesn't feel like losing. It feels like finally breathing. It started with one word. No. Anna asked if I could help organize a baby shower for Mathoy's cousin. I smiled, and said, I can't. No excuse, no apology, just a calm, quiet refusal. She blinked like she didn't understand the language, then laughed nervously and said, You always help with these things. I just sipped my coffee and shrugged. That was the first crack. After that, the shift was hard to ignore. I stopped attending family dinners, stopped replying in the group chat. When I did show up, I brought store-bought food, not the homemade desserts they always expected. And I smiled less, not out of anger, but out of clarity. They noticed. Anna started calling more, saying things like, I feel like we haven't talked in forever. And you've been so distant lately. Everything okay? I always said, yeah, just tired. Or work's been full on. But she could feel it, that invisible door slowly closing. Mathos asked too. One night, he looked at me while we brushed our teeth and said, You've been off lately. Are we okay? I wanted to scream. You let them talk about me like garbage. You sat there and let me believe I was loved. But instead, I said, I don't know, and went to bed early. That night, I started packing a few things. Not loudly, not dramatically, just one drawer, then another. By the end of the week, I had 2 suitcases ready, one hidden under the bed, the other already in my car trunk. I accepted the job in the other city, told no one, signed the lease for a small place, just enough for me, just enough to breathe. And then I wrote one letter, just one, addressed to Anna. No insults, no dramatic lines, just the truth. I told her I knew about the group, that I read every message, and that I forgave her not because she deserved it, but because I refused to carry her cruelty any longer. I ended with, You had a chance to build something real with me. You chose control over connection. You lost more than a daughter-in-law. You lost someone who truly tried to love you. I left the letter on her kitchen counter. Then, the next morning, before the sun came up, I left. No goodbyes, no explanation, just silence. The kind that says, you don't get to hurt me twice. The silence after leaving felt strange at first, like walking into a room you once lived in and realizing it doesn't belong to you anymore. But slowly, it stopped feeling empty and started feeling clean. I unpacked in my new place without rushing, hung curtains that I liked, bought mismatched mugs on purpose, ate dinner on the floor for the first week and smiled, because for the first time in years, everything around me was mine. No one watching, no fake smiles, no unspoken rules to decode. Just me, and a version of peace I didn't know existed. Anna didn't reach out. Neither did Mathos. But mutual friends started messaging. Some said they were shocked. Some said Anna cried for days. Mathos apparently told people I left out of nowhere. I didn't respond to any of it, because they weren't asking out of love. They were asking out of discomfort. People don't like when the quiet ones leave, especially without a fight, because it forces them to sit with the question, what did we do that made her stop trying? The truth. They knew. They always knew. They just never thought I'd find out. And even if I did, they didn't think I'd go. That's the part they underestimated. But I didn't leave to punish them. I left to protect myself. To stop bleeding for people who never offered a bandage. To stop performing for a family that only clapped when I bowed low enough. Now, I work. I rest. I read. I laugh without checking if it makes someone uncomfortable. Some days, I still feel the ache. But it's quieter now. And it doesn't ask for explanations. It just reminds me, I survived. And more than that, I walked out with my dignity. No screaming, no revenge, no last word, just distance. And sometimes, distance is the closure they'll never understand.